You are now listening to Carly's Couch.
I'm Carly.
And I'm Lex.
In this podcast, we discuss a wide array of topics about life and how to live your best life,
whatever that looks like for you.
Hope y'all enjoy.
Life comes with conflict, and with conflict, we have to have difficult conversations. So in this episode of Carly's Couch, we're going to talk about how to get better at having these difficult conversations.
Happy whatever day it is that you're listening to us.
It's Monday. They know.
I mean, yeah, you're right. And the people who catch us on YouTube really late on Sunday nights, we appreciate you too.
3 a.m. as soon as it gets published. Like, whoa, buddy.
Shout out to y'all.
I don't know if they be watching or if they just comment as soon as it comes up. But for everybody listening, please follow and subscribe on YouTube, because one thing I do like about YouTube is they do send that notification. Like every time you do publish something, you get the notification. So pay attention, subscribe, watch. Actually, hey, if you're subscribed to the podcast on iTunes, I think you get a notification too. So I need
Spotify too.
Right. Spotify, yeah, I need for y'all to not swipe out of that and to actually listen to the episode.
Yeah. But I will say our downloads went up these past couple weeks. Okay. And so shout out to y'all for getting back engaged with us. We want to close out the year strong. And I think that's why I started thinking about wanting to talk about difficult conversations, because you have to have them, like, no matter what's going on in life. Like, even if you're not in a romantic relationship, you have to have them with friends or family or coworkers, bosses, people who work under you. And I think that across the board, we're just not great at conflict and understanding like ways to approach situations that are mutually beneficial. And so I thought, hey, let's just try to get better this week.
Do you know your communication style? Are you anxious or avoidant or conflict style?
I don't know about the conflict style. I do know my attachment style used to be anxious. I would say now. That's what I meant. We need a therapist to talk about those, because I think that those are cool, especially on TikTok. I follow rabbit holes all the time. But I used to be anxious. I would say now I'm secure for the most part. But when I was in business school,
because I don't know what that's looking like.
Girl, I've been doing work, but I also revert back to anxious, like really quickly. And so it just depends on the day. But conflict, I know that when we're under duress, that it takes us out of our typical way we deal with things. And so whenever you're under that, like, your conflict style could be very different from your everyday lifestyle. And so when I was at USC, they did like a red, green, blue. So for example, if you're red conflict style, you approach things head on, you like conflict, you want to argue, you want to talk about it, you want to get things done. If you're green, you approach it with all this data. Like, you go into it like, here's all the facts that we need to talk about. Here's this. And if you're blue, you avoid it. And so they show you the way that you deal with it. And I think mine was green, red, and then blue. So at first, I'm going to bring you all the facts, and then we're going to fight about it, and then I'm going to leave you alone.
That's real.
And so I think it's important. Yeah.
So I know, like, for my attachment style, that I'm avoidant. And so when we talk about a topic like difficult conversations, I know for me, I rather just avoid all of it. Like, I don't want to have a conversation. I'm just going to either fall back and like get real quiet or distant, or maybe act like it's not happening or whatever. Like, I'm just not really trying to have moments of conflict like that, which is interesting because I have partners who are way more like into, like, they want to talk about something immediately. And so it's weird because it's like I'm on shutdown and then they want to turn up, and then it's like it doesn't match. Or I have friends who are also avoidant, so like we just never talk about the thing. And you know how sometimes it's like things can just go on and kind of lag on. So I see the results from all of that, which really it's like, all right, you will never get to like what you're trying to accomplish if you are avoidant or if you're not having the conversations you need to have. I think that is the bottom line. I think that none of these are necessarily, well, there is a right or wrong. Like, I think secure, of course, is the best way to approach things and to be able to have conversations. But also, if I know I'm avoidant, and there's a convo to be had or whatever, I think it is still important to recognize how to approach these things where both people are actually like able to participate in the right way, right? If I'm shutting down, then it's like you attacking me and being like, why are you being quiet? Why are you not doing it? Is not going to help us like have the conversation we need to have. So I wondered what your attachment style was, because that can frame like your perspective on having difficult conversations. And personally, like, I'm not a fan. Like, I can very easily say that. Like, I am not a fan. I don't, if it's a difficult conversation, I'm not trying to have it.
And I love that we're on seemingly opposite ends of the spectrum, like with this,
I
because
know that
I'm
ain't the
trying to,
right way, but but that's also
yeah,
the
but
real thing.
but also with me, when I say like I'm secure, that's work. And I always err towards anxious, and so whenever things happen, I want to talk about it right then. And so that's not good either, to push up on people whenever they need space or
Mhm.
whenever there needs to be air. And so there's not, I would say secure is somewhere in the middle, but it does take a level of self-awareness to make sure you're respecting your boundaries and understanding your partners. And so, or whoever you're in conflict with.
Yeah.
It doesn't even just have to be a romantic partner, but it's important that you're aware of how you deal with things so that conversations can be had.
Yeah. But I think we both can agree though that there people are so different. And so whether, and you said at the beginning, whether it's work, friends, family, like there's with any relationships, there's always going to be some
Mm-hmm.
place where you're not on the same page, and where you need to have a conversation, or you, whether that's you expressing what you need, whether you're expressing an issue with somebody or an issue with a situation, whatever it is, um, it is still important for sure to, as we've been talking about in the last few weeks, to honor yourself and what you need. Um, and when that comes to involving somebody else, like that can be difficult. But like, what are the things that make it so difficult to just express that? Like, why is it that we can't just be like, hey, XYZ, I'm having this issue and we need to talk about it?
Man, I think a big one, especially I think for anxious people, is like you don't want to hurt the other person because you're automatically like going into it assuming that it's going to be hard and you're thinking about their feelings. And so you could not honor yourself in trying to protect their feelings or even what you think, because you haven't had the conversation, so you don't know. But I think a lot of times what keeps us is like you don't want to upset the other person, or you don't want to like hurt their feelings.
Hmm. I guess I'm kind of thinking about it too, because I don't know. I don't really view myself as somebody who, I don't want to say I don't care about other people's feelings, but like that wouldn't be the main motivator. But maybe outside of not wanting to hurt their feelings is, yeah, it's always going to be something selfish. I think a little bit more selfish, where it's like I don't want that person to view me as a certain way. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I
There
don't
you
want
go.
the other person to view me as I'm being selfish, or as I'm being rude or mean, or I'm even a difficult person. So even in relationships, sometimes it's like, hey, I kind of actually want some flowers, or whatever it may be, right? It's like you might not express or have that conversation because you don't want to appear difficult, or like you have needs or other things. You may be shorting yourself in that way. So I think that's another reason as well, sometimes why we don't have difficult conversations, because we want to maintain other people's like view of us, or a certain view that we want to have of ourselves, um that obviously isn't aligned with what we actually want and who we actually are. So that just leads to resentment. So it's like, also, you got to keep it real with yourself.
I was about to say, yeah, that's a big one. And yeah, maybe it's just like trying to control the other person's feelings in general. So
Mm,
whether it's controlling like how they see you, how they see your needs, like how you want them to view you, or like you don't want to get them to get upset. I think
mhm.
also drama, like you don't want to mess up a good moment. Like you having a great day, with your partner. You don't want to mess that up. So you're like, man, let me just forego this because I don't want to always be that person who's bringing up something.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fair, because after a while, you can easily start to become a nagger or look like a nagging person when you've talked about something multiple times. And especially if you're not approaching it, I don't know if I should say the right way, but like if you're not approaching it in an open and like healthy kind of way, that's not like attacking somebody, then it's like, all right, after so many times. Also, another thing maybe it's like, if you keep having to have the same type of conversation, or there's an issue that's ongoing, maybe it's like you're not willing to have a difficult conversation, because really what that means is you need to walk away, or you need to like step away, or you need to like cut somebody
Mm-hmm.
out, or like, hey, maybe we just need to not be friends, or maybe we need to not try to be in this relationship, or maybe we need to not be trying to force something. And sometimes I think we have difficulty accepting that. And so it's like, instead of having the conversation we need to have, we just kind of like going along with the flow sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. And avoiding what really needs to happen or be said. Because, yeah, admitting
Yeah,
the truth
sometimes
to
person's
ourselves
a
can be
person.
hard.
Like what they do is what they
Yeah.
do, how they're gonna be is how they're gonna be. If you find yourself you're like over explaining, if you're trying to blame somebody else for something and say that they have the issue, it's like, all right, if you're over explaining, you're being over responsible now at this point, and it's like you gotta do what you gotta do and maintain your own boundaries, right? So um and that's again if you've had like multiple conversations. So if we're going back to like having that initial conversation, sometimes I think though we do, it's like, all right, we want to act like something's not a problem, and so we don't want to even have the difficult conversation in the first place.
And I think that can stem from like not knowing how to approach it, not
Yeah.
knowing what to say, or like feeling like your words might be misconstrued. So you want to be very, careful about what you say.
Mhm.
But even like going back to my attachment style, like just anxiety about the conversation because you can't control how the other person's going to respond or react. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. There's a risk that you could be perceived differently or that things could go crazy. And I think a lot of times people can spend so much time playing the what if game in their head.
Mhm.
Like, oh man, if I tell my boss that I don't like the tone he uses with me, like I could lose my job and then I'm gonna be homeless and
Mhm.
then nobody's gonna hire me. And you know what I mean? Then we go down this whole path of catastrophizing when it's like, dog, just have the conversation.
Yeah, and I think I've talked about this on here. I don't remember what episode it could have been, but I one time like I was like, okay, I was ready to have a conversation, and in my head, I thought it was gonna be so fucking smooth, like because honestly, because I was like, you know what, I was gonna be like, you're right, I recognize this and that, and then it still turned into like some argument. I was like, oh damn, like shit, I just cannot win. Like I don't know what's happening. Like you really cannot try to forecast how somebody's gonna react, and so I think what's most important with like a difficult conversation is really understanding where do you stand and how do you feel. Like that's really all you can kind of convey. I feel a certain way. This is what I would like to see, perhaps. But it's like, man, as soon as you like start thinking too hard about how you think it's gonna go or what you think they're gonna say, I was like, man, I am perplexed. I don't even know how we got here. And now it's turning something else. And I mean, at least I spoke up because to what you said, it's like I don't know if it's like not knowing how to have the conversation sometimes, but again, it's like I just don't. It's not like we've talked about feelings. Sometimes, like I don't even know how to
Mm-hmm.
really understand like what am I feeling or why do I feel upset. And then it's like to try to figure out how to express that to somebody else. Sometimes it's also like I don't really know where to start, so I'm just not going to say anything. So I think like a lot of times it may be, just you really figuring out what the issue is and how you're really feeling, so you can express that. And a lot of times I find
Mm-hmm.
myself just Googling. I'll hop online and be like, I'll just type random stuff like, oh, I'm feeling like this, or this is the situation. And it's just like, what do I do? How do I bring this up? What do I say? And I'm not ashamed of that. Like I will Google how to have a conversation about whatever. um, and a lot of times that's helpful. And a lot of times it really just shows you like, hey, you need to think about yourself, half time. But um,
Whoa.
yeah, sometimes you just need help with like how do you get started?
Yeah, and I love that. And I Google everything also. And I also remember that episode that you were talking about that. And so it's like when you're in these situations where you don't know what to say or you don't you know that something needs to change or that a conversation needs to be had, like what is the tipping point for like enough becoming enough? So you Google, you know how you feel. Like how do you actually know that it's time to have this conversation or what makes you choose to have it, even though you don't want to or it's uncomfortable?
Mm-hmm. Mm, you know what? Maybe so. Two things. I think that because this a difficult conversation can come from maybe the second or third time somebody does something as simple as they listen to their music too loud in the car and you're like, dang, I kind of this is a little loud. I didn't want to say nothing the first couple times, but now it's like, all right, this is their thing, but what do I say? I'm in their car. I don't want to bother them. It could be as
Mm-hmm.
simple as that. Um, to where I think timing also is important too. So it's like if somebody's doing something against you or hurtful to you, I think as soon as you feel some kind of way, that's a reason to say, okay, this is something I need to kind of talk about. But maybe depending on what it is and or depending on what's happening, you need to pay attention to the timing of when to bring it up. Oh, I actually was listening to probably School of Greatness. who was talking about this? I want to say it was Dr. Phil. He's had him on recently, a few episodes ago.
Man, that was such a good episode.
Yeah, and maybe it was that. I hope it was that one then. And there was something said about, he's like, hey, don't talk about the things necessarily while they're happening or while you feel some kind of way. But now during a good time, like let's say if this is a relationship based thing, you guys are going on a walk, having a good time, that may be the time, a better time to bring up like, hey, this is how I'm feeling about a certain thing. Not when it's happening and when people may be more prone to be defensive or, not really in a space to listen necessarily. Again, I'm not sure exactly how to say like what to say at that exact time, but I'm also not sure how I feel about that. But if you're in the moment, sometimes I feel like even how you try to express yourself can come across as an attack, or it can come across as reactive, or aggressive, etc. Or like pointing your fingers or blaming and things like that. So I do think that it's important to maybe like think about your argument, make sure you're not tripping, and at a better time, like you can bring it up as like, hey, it's something that kind of bothers me. Because also I've had it said to me before too. It's like, hey, like if something's bothering you, like why don't you just say something? And it's like, oh, okay. Like so also if somebody cares about you, whether it's family, a friend, relationship, they also want to know like what's bothering you. Like that's not fair to them, right? Like if you're just sitting here like feeling some kind of way and they don't really know what's going on or why. But the way you say things and how you say them is very important. So I think timing is a big key to difficult conversations.
Man, I think that's such a huge one, and not only for you but for the other person too. So we've been talking about relationship, but imagine a work example. So let's say you're having a conflict with a coworker, or you don't like the way they approached a client or something. Are you gonna roll up to them like at the staff meeting in the morning when everybody's like, "Good morning. By the way, I don't like what," you're not gonna do that. So it's like, figuring out the proper time, and also making sure, and as a very emotional person, like making sure you're not being led by your emotions, because they are very reactive. And physiologically, whenever your body is in a stress response, so whenever your emotions are very heightened and you are in your fight or flight, you're not as intelligent as you normally are, and you're not thinking from your right place of mind. And so you do need to take that time to settle down and check in with yourself before you approach anybody else. Because boy, I was talking out the side of my neck a couple weeks ago, and had I just paused, it would have been a much better outcome.
And those are always the combos that like I'll end up regretting, mostly because they'll end up being rooted in insecurity. If it's something that's like right as something's happening, you say something or like, oh well, XYZ, or like you shouldn't have been doing this, or you're doing whatever, or I have a problem with this. And it's like the way you talk in absolutes or the way you say things, a lot of times I feel come from a place of like your insecurity, where it's not an effective conversation if it has these extra layers of kind of baggage and other things on it, which is why it's like, all right, take a minute, like breathe, think about it. Sometimes it's not that deep. And sometimes two, it's like, all right, let me approach this the actual right way with like real facts and not being like, you always do this or whatever, where it's like off top, you lose and you come across crazy, not crazy for real, but like you come across a certain way when it's like you're telling somebody that they always do a thing. And it's like, what? I just did this, and this, and this for you yesterday. And it's like, okay, let's really like think about what's going on. So all of that I think is important in difficult conversations. But what does it mean to separate your emotions? Does that mean we're not allowed to be upset? We're not allowed to feel angry or sad or, however about what's happening that we need to have a conversation about?
No, like y'all know that I am a proponent for emotions, and trying to figure them out. So I always lead with my heart. Like that's my thing. Even if we are having a difficult conversation, if I take the time to process, I'll know how I feel and I'll still feel like that, but I'm not coming at you like that. Meaning if you upset me and it's in whatever scenario, work or partner relationship, whatever, I'm not going to come at you with my full force of anger. That's what it means to separate. It's like I can still be angry and not treat you like I'm angry and lash out on you. So I would say that the ability to separate your emotions is to not bring them into the conversation. You can feel them, they can be backing, you can discuss them because they deserve to be heard and they're valid. And also not lashing out the person. Just because somebody pissed you off doesn't give you a right to talk to them crazy. Like sometimes like there's always a time and a place, but it's like and separating those moments.
Also, sidebar before we get into like how do you kind of untangle your emotions from the situation. Sidebar though, sometimes the difficult conversations we need to have are because we did wrong. And that's sometimes even harder, I think, to tell somebody when you're like, oh, I know I wasn't right. Like, or I said this or I did that or whatever. And you should say something, but it's also easy to just never say anything. And to just kind of keep moving, but you kind of feel like, I should have, addressed this or that. I think that's important to include in this conversation as well, because making things right on your end, if you're off or wrong, is very powerful. I've that's what I was talking about earlier when I tried to do that and it didn't go well. But there's times that I have tried to do that or have done that, and they're like, "Oh, thank you." Like now, like we can kind of be on the same page about something, or that's important for your own accountability and being able to actually grow and move forward in certain things as well. Is having difficult conversations where you were wrong. So just want to throw that in there as well. That again, while we always kind of focus on, it's easy to focus, I think, on, other people, like you got to talk to somebody about what they did. A lot of times it could be us as well.
Man, and what's funny is that's actually the first step. So I was listening to a podcast and Mel Robbins was talking about it, and a lot of
Who's
her
talking
examples
about
are
it?
more Mel Robbins.
Oh, okay.
5 second rule.
Hmm.
But she was talking about it, about difficult conversations. And the first step is to acknowledge responsibility in the issue. And that's whatever situation it is, even if it's a work situation. So let's say that you had a person that was working underneath you on a team that, was consistently late on deadlines or not meeting things. You have to, going into this difficult conversation with this person, you have to acknowledge that you're part of it. So,
Yeah.
I allowed this to happen 5 or 6 times. I never said anything. That's my bad. You know what I mean? Like owning up to your part of it too. Whether it's like, man, I've been avoiding this conversation with you because, it's difficult and I didn't want to hurt your feelings. And I really like the work you do, but you have been off lately or whatever it is. But always start with acknowledging your part in the situation, whether it's you allowing things, you not being upfront, you avoiding the conversation, so that the other person can kind of be put at ease. So they know you're not just going at their throat. You're not just coming at them crazy, that you're acknowledging yourself and what you did. And
Hmm.
you're honoring them in that way too, like helping them feel seen and showing them that you've done enough research and thought enough about the situation that you see the whole picture and not just them messing up or doing something.
Yeah. But I think it's still important how you deliver that too, because that made me think about, I've had somebody tell me before, um, like we're arguing about whatever, and they're like, yeah, it's my bad. I see it's a lot of my fault too. I shouldn't stuck around. It's like, what? Like I should
What? Okay.
like I should have left a long time ago when I saw XYZ, and it's like, okay, but you didn't, so here we are. Like, all right.
But,
It's like
but I think
how
that's,
like when you like a not it's not an apology, but like when you say things in a certain way, but it's like you're still just trying to throw it on me, and it's like, all right, bro, like whatever.
yeah. And that is not what this is. And we did a whole episode about apologies. Like, please, I gotta find the number, but go back and listen to that if you are trying to apologize to somebody and learn how to do better, or about not accepting bullshit ass apologies in general, because that's a
Mm.
bullshit ass apology. That's not, man, that's my bad. I stayed. Shut up, leave,
Right.
bye. Like, it doesn't matter.
Like, all right. And if yeah, right. And if that's how
Yeah.
you feel, the conversation should be like, so I think we should do this. And like you actually honor what you think you need to be doing versus going in those same circles. But I digress because I be in the same circle too. Anyway,
We all do
another way
sometimes.
when we're talking about having difficult conversations, another thing that's important, I think, is to think about the outcome that you want when you're getting started with the conversation. But again, I think you have to be careful to make sure you're not trying to define the outcomes you want from the other person exactly. And I don't know how deep that has to be. Sure, you may want it to be like, okay, I want them to understand this is how I feel, or I want them to, I would like for them to agree to not do a thing. Maybe that's cool. I'm not sure how deep that should go. But you can't be married to those things if it's other person, right? So think about what you want, which may just be to be heard, to be understood, that you want to get on the same page about, hey, I want us to have a better relationship as a brother and sister, or as a relationship, or as friends. Like I want, things to be a certain way. Um, in that way, it's like also if you're keeping that at the forefront and having this conversation, maybe it'll help you view the difficult conversation as more of a means instead of like this is an obstacle type of thing. Like this isn't necessarily a bad thing. And it's so funny because as I'm saying all these things, I'm like, that's exactly how I view all of it. But but I'm still working on it. That's why I'm like, girl, like I be knowing what I need to do, but also it's like I don't want to have no difficult conversation. But every time I've had to have a difficult conversation, it makes you closer. Difficult conversations lead to intimacy. They mean real intimacy. They mean that you're actually being vulnerable. They mean that you're actually growing with a person. Um, and having issues with a person is not an end all be all, not a bad thing. A lot of times it's a signifier that we're getting closer and that we are growing together. Um, so I think that, having that outcome in mind is helpful in letting that kind of be like what leads why and how you're having this conversation.
I think it provides an anchoring point. So it's like, even if the person is going to hear something that could be hurtful to them, so like the way that they talk to you hurts your feelings, or they did this to you, if they know, like in their head, that, man, we're having this conversation because she really cares about me and our relationship and she wants it to get better. Like, that's why we're having this conversation, instead of just approaching it.
I feel like nobody thinks
Like,
that we're actually in the middle of a difficult conversation. And that's the
I don't
crazy
know.
part. Like, to me, and maybe that's my problem too, is that when we're talking about having a difficult conversation, I think about an argument. Because to me, most of them, it's so easy, right? You might go in like, hey, Carl, I just want to talk about XYZ. The next thing you know, it's like, well, that's why, blah, 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 blah. And like, you're like, it very quickly can like escalate. And I think it's hard sometimes to like just keep it at like a base point where it doesn't feel like, oh, it's not just an argument per se.
Yeah, and it's hard, but I think that that's helpful, right? So if we were having that conversation, if I knew at the beginning that you started it with, hey, I really want to make our friendship better, like I really care, then whenever we start getting into it or maybe arguing or whatever, there's a part of me that still is like, oh, wait, but the purpose is to make us better, not to, demean me, not to hurt my feelings, not to, do whatever, not to comfort me. And so it's like helpful to know what the intent is at the beginning, at least for me, so that we can know, like, moving forward what we're working towards. Because otherwise, sometimes if people are just bringing up things about somebody that bothers them, but there's not any reassurance of why or why we're having this conversation, I think it can be very problematic. And I think the trauma is very real from having a lot of
Yeah.
terrible, difficult conversations and arguments.
And I think one thing we haven't talked about yet, and that's very important, is with difficult conversations, is be prepared to have your feelings hurt. Because if I need to have a difficult conversation with somebody about, hey, you're kind of like, I love you to death, but you're kind of doing this, or like, this is a thing that actually is pushing me away or bothering me or whatever. It's hard, like we said, it's hard to have these conversations because you hate to offend people that you do care about, or you hate to come across a certain way. But also it's like, man, for your own like sake, mental health, whatever, happiness, it's like, bro, like this is really bugging me. And you to say that, right, like twofold on the other side, it's like, man, like, can you allow somebody to state that and to talk about you in a way where it's like, damn, you might feel bad, but also, can I also separate this and be like, hey, like, I'm affecting this person in this way? And that's hard, that's really hard. And also, as a person who might be speaking to somebody, like, it's hard to hurt somebody's feelings, and the feelings are going to be hurt, and it's hard to like have your feelings hurt when people want to talk to you. So sometimes I'll know, like, if somebody wants to talk to me about something, it's like, oh man, they're about to tell me about myself, or like, how do I not be in my feelings about it? And I think that's a part of it. Like, you're going to, but now it's how you're reacting in that space. And I think probably the easiest way to deal with that is just like shut up and listen. If you're on that side of it, it's like, yo, just try to shut up and listen and look for what you can agree with, and just hear what they're saying and try to understand what they're saying. But that's a big part of difficult conversations, getting your feelings hurt. And that's where you be blown. But that's really,
Man.
like, to me, I think that's like one of the biggest prices. It's like, man, I don't want to hurt my friend feelings, but dog, like, they're getting on my nerves, or whatever it may be. Family member, like, that's staying with you or whatever, like, oh, I really don't, I feel bad because I don't, they're in my space and it's really starting to blow me, but like, what do I say? And it's like, I don't know, but we got to say something, right? And so
Yeah.
somebody, at the end of the day, their feelings are going to be hurt, and dealing with that from both sides is very difficult.
It is, but it's necessary. I think
Yeah.
anytime, like, we're growing as people, and inevitably you're gonna fall short, you're gonna hurt somebody's feelings, you're gonna piss somebody off, they're gonna do the same thing to you. But I think, like we've been talking about, recognizing what you need and honoring yourself
Mhm. And
requires
the
having these
day,
conversations.
that's your life.
Be
Yep.
damned. Yeah. Or are you gonna live a life that's continually avoiding things to make yourself feel better in order to make other people feel better. And I'm not sacrificing myself for everybody in my life. I love y'all, but we gonna have conversations and it's okay. And they suck and people's feelings get hurt, but they're necessary. And one of my favorite things you said is like, I always feel closer to people afterwards. Like I feel like we grow or we don't, right? Maybe the relationship ends, but if we're meant to be in each other's lives and
anytime you be arguing or whatever, there's gonna be extra turned up afterwards. It's like, damn, that's I don't know if that's unhealthy or healthy, but all right. You feel closer.
Is this toxic? Yeah, is this toxic? Like,
right.
What's going on?
What, like whether it's a friendship, family, relationship, whatever, like when you have like a deep argument, but then you kind of come together afterward, it's like, oh, now we're a little closer. Like we got over a hill and now we're like closer. It's weird.
It is, but it's like, because you can go through those things together. And I think it allows you an opportunity to be vulnerable and to be seen. And then them too. And anytime you're more vulnerable and opening yourself up to potential hurt, like, and that's being intimate with a person. It's not just like having sex is not the only way to be intimate. It's really sharing yourself with somebody. And so it's like, are you willing to do that?
And that's why you feel intimate, because you're doing that. You're sharing yourself. And so now you feel closer. And then of course that may just be how it manifests out or whatever, but you feel closer.
And you're not just sharing this like perfect version of you who you think you have to be in your head, who never is upset and never does anything to people and is always this. It's like, no, that's not really you. That's like who you want to be perceived as, but that's not you. So the moment you shed that and allow people to see you, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we've all been there, that's whenever you can really start to grow relationships. And so I think listening and validating is probably the most important thing you can do. And that's listening to help the other person feel heard and seen. And you don't know how they're going to respond or react, but giving them space to do so. And then validating them and their emotions. Like, I hear you, or I see you, or I understand. That doesn't mean you have to agree, but you do need to validate their emotions. And again, on the episode about apologizing, it's not to be like, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. That is not what that is not what we're saying. You're just validating that, yes, their emotions are very real. They're real to them, and that matters to you.
Yeah, that's hard sometimes. It's, again, people are so different.
All of this is hard. All of this is hard.
It's so hard. Like, people be like, well, I feel like this, and I want you to validate that. And it's like, all right, bro. That's how I feel like, man, you got it. It don't make sense to me, but at the end of the day, to your point, it's like, if that's how you feel, it has to be validated. So, and regardless of, like, you shouldn't even need certain explanations of certain things to just hear what the person's saying, how they feel, And it's like, all right, this is how you feel. It's not a right or wrong. But now what do you do from there? Is there any other tips like we have, or that we can come up with for like how to have a difficult conversation?
I would say, oh man, I just had a really good one. It was so good. Maybe it went
a lot of it is kind of focusing on like kind of the same framework as apologizing, where it's like focus on how you feel.
I would say if you're on the receiving end of this, so let's say someone comes to you, like, recognize that it's also hard for people to come to you with this. And so like, thank them for sharing that too. Like, it's not just you being heard. Like, it probably took them a lot of talking themselves up in the car before they could come in and have a conversation with you. And so I would also say just recognizing the other person, like, thank you so much for sharing that with me. That, I can imagine that might have been tough, to come talk to me about this. Even if your feelings are hurt, like, you still honor people in your space. And so I think on the receiving end, that's a big tip, to recognize that, it's hard. We all know how hard it is. So acknowledge them.
Yeah, it really is. Like, it's just as hard to like sit there and listen to somebody talking to you as it is to like finally get up the nerve or, figure out how you're going to approach it or what you're going to say that to somebody. And again, though, like we've said with the last couple episodes, though, it's a huge weight off your shoulders, because like I think sometimes we don't even realize how much we kind of let things weigh on us. It could be the smallest thing, but like especially with like a friend or like family member or something like that, like you just haven't said anything and it can really weigh on you. And I think what's weird is that it can weigh on you until like now you have a conversation and it's like, oh, like the hardest part, or like the more stressful part, was you anticipating and thinking about like what's going to happen. And, like before you even say a thing, right? Like you're stressed out about how they're going to take it and all of those things, when once you actually just get this over with and like rip the Band-Aid off, as is seems probably most things in life, now it's like, okay, we're actually just moving forward, and like, whew, like finally, like, why did I wait so long? Or, this makes sense, right? Like recently I've realized like, oh yeah, conflict is actually, this makes sense because it literally moves you forward. It's literally the only way to move forward. Otherwise you're regressed, you have resentments, and things just build up and pile up that are not healthy for you. So conflict is a good thing, and it really, especially depending on how you grew up, the type of person you are, your attachment styles, all those things, it's hard to accept that, or like it's hard to really like wrap your mind around looking for conflict, or like looking to like hop into it. But it really is the way forward, and it's so funny, like even now it's like I'm learning that and I know that, and it's still difficult, but I can like, all this stuff is practice. So like it's a little bit easier and a little bit easier and a little bit easier to like just do it and just get it over with and just have the conversations. For me, I think the most important thing now, or the thing that I try to be most aware of, is like, how am I approaching it, and making sure like we take that pause, and you're not just sitting here like accusing people of stuff and XYZ, right? So that's kind of like where I'm at now. But I like this conversation that we're having around difficult combos, because I just think it's so important and so applicable to literally every part of your life.
Every single part. And like, it doesn't ever get easier. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I've been self-aware for a long time, and I mean, increasingly so, but like, it doesn't get easier because you don't want to hurt people that you love, or you don't want to upset people or whatever. But I've been practicing just being more bold. So taking less time to stew in it and to sit in the anticipation and allowing all the catastrophizing to happen, because boy, that would make me just want to never talk to that person again and move to a different country. And I don't want to do that. I want to have these conversations. And so I just do them. But I like what your therapist told you like a while back. Like, you just started a conversation. Hey, I don't know how to say this, and this is really difficult for me, but I'm feeling like this. You know what I mean? Just going into
Yeah.
it, stating from the beginning. I would say some tips when you're thinking about it is still listen, validate the other person. Again, I'm reiterating that because that's probably the most important thing. Don't use accusatory language. Don't say you always, don't blame them. Don't say you're making me feel like this. No, you're choosing to feel like this because of something that happened. That doesn't make your feelings any less valid, but don't blame the person. Like, recognize your part in stuff. And then I would say the thing we haven't discussed, but something I think is important, is if it's applicable, perhaps having next steps or having something that would help the person meet your needs or not do that again. For example, lately I've been feeling like we haven't been really connected, and it's been hurting my feelings. Something that would make me feel more connected to you is if we spent quality time together at least once a week or something. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And then kind of outlining that. So giving an option to fix it, like telling them what it can look like, and then allowing them to
Yeah.
opt in, but coming to a solution together. So
Yeah.
it can't just be like, well, I need you to send me flowers on every Monday. On Tuesday, we
Yeah.
got to have dates. Wednesday, we
And
getting mani
sometimes people
petty.
don't even know like how to solve this for you, like because they're thinking like, oh, I thought we were connected, and it's different for
Yeah.
different people. So that, I like that advice, to kind of come to a suggestion of like, hey, how can we, do something once a week, or just kind of come up with something together. That is good.
And that also requires you to look inside yourself and figure out what it is that you need and
Mhm.
what that actually looks like, because we're out here speaking a million different languages to each other about love and connection and intimacy and conflict and whatever, quality time. And so it's like making sure we're on the same page, because anytime that you communicate, y'all can get closer. But you have to have the conversations. So just have the conversation. All of that to say that.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So I think this has been a good combo. Hopefully, people are. I think listening to this, one of the main things is just understanding the importance of not being afraid to have the difficult convos, and thinking about where you may need to have those, and like how can you move forward in that space.
Mm-hmm. And so hit us up at Carly's Couch on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, because we popping over there. And let us know, what are your tips and tricks and keys to having difficult conversations? Or if you're not having them, let us know how you're going to start having them. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I've been a little lonely lately because we haven't gotten any voicemails. So if you
Right?
have
No,
any
no
topics,
reviews, no nothing. Like,
no
dang,
suckers,
y'all not listening.
come
Y'all not for
on.
real listening.
Man, so if you want us to talk about anything in particular, if you got stuff, cool stuff going on that you want us to shout out, call us at 323-505-2030. It sounds like I'm about to do a jingle that's like on the radio back in Oklahoma and Texas. They like real good ass jingles.
Everybody,
but 323
everybody got a jingle for their number.
2030. We gotta make one. I can make a TikTok out of it. Anyways, this week's shout out. This week's shout out is the Babe Cave LA. It is powered by women of color in an effort to champion and cultivate our community's creativity. Visionaries Randija Simmons, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that, Randija Simmons and Sierra Hood are both multidisciplinary artists and entrepreneurs, and they've collaborated and produced art together for over the past 8 years, and then they expanded this into the Babe Cave LA Studios, which is a safe workspace and community for all artists. Sierra, she paints and like makes sets, pop-up sets, and so you can check out their Instagram. We'll link it. And shout out to my homie Sims for doing a Busta Rhymes photo shoot in their newest pop-up that they have, so you can book some time, and they're in downtown LA. So follow them. Black and brown women owned business doing great things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, and that's so funny. That's one of the homies is on there as like their first picture. So go check them out. Book some time if you have a creative vision that you're trying to do. Then we end every week with a question of the week. And Alexia, can you describe your life in a 6-word sentence?
Oh, that's a lot of math right now.
Or okay, just in one sentence. It doesn't have to be 6 words.
And actually, that could be it. That's a lot. A lot is 2 words. That's a lot.
No, a lot is 1 word. Oh no, it is 2 words. Fuck.
How about? Well, I'll say that's a lot of math now, and I'm gonna use that because I think that's reflective of my life right now, because I feel like everything is at a place where it's like, oh, I have to like think so hard about like, are these numbers making sense? Is this mathing? Like whether it's like with work stuff, client stuff, contractors, getting things done. And sorry, somebody's like blasting their music next door, about to have a party. But yeah, that's really what my life is right now. It's like I'm having to like feel like I'm kind of overthinking a little bit, or having to think really hard about a lot of numbers and just how things are connecting.
Oh, that's a good one. And see, I cheated, so I asked her first so I could be over here counting. My hands on 1, 2. I would say
live, love, laugh, live forever.
More like I would say doing my best. Yep, that's it. But I would say doing my best and having fun. Like that's all your girl got right now. That's all your girl got right now. But shout out to me real quick, because I remember last week we talked about where in our life could we be more spontaneous or something like that. And I was talking about booking trips. And so shout out to me for booking a trip, because it's been a minute. So you're about to be outside.
Okay. Yeah. How far are you going? Where are you going? Or whatever
I'm going
to
Oklahoma. I'm going to Oklahoma.
You going home?
Yeah, I'm gonna pop up on my mama.
Oh, for the holidays or something sooner?
Nah, something sooner. Like real quick. Cool. Gonna pop up on her and then all the homies from Fire in Little Africa. Gonna go see them in Tulsa, and then slide down to Oklahoma City to see all the peeps down there.
Oh, cool. Good. Well, that's good. Yeah, it feels good. Like if you have the means and you just like, we're gonna just go for a little bit, especially when it's like home or somewhere where you can have somewhere to stay, or people to hang out with. That's really good. So good to see you getting outside.
Man, finally, it's been a minute. But how do y'all describe your life? You can use a 6-word sentence or however many words you want to use. But hit us at Carly's Couch. Thank you for listening, and we'll see y'all next week.
Cheers. Bye.
Salud.